There are 10,000 ways to die in the 41st millennium, but only one way to truly live, to defy the galaxy itself. Tony Stark should have been dead. He remembered his last moments, bleeding out in orbit over Earth, the stars fading as his armor shut down piece by piece. But death didn't claim him. Instead, there was light, pain, and the whisper of a machine god's prayer. When he awoke, he was no longer in his world. The stars were colder here, the air heavy with incense and iron dust, and the people, they knelt before machines. This was not the future he'd imagined. It was the far future, a nightmare of faith and fire, where humanity crawled beneath the weight of its own ignorance. He lay upon a slab of bronze within a cathedral of steel. Candles flickered beside ancient cogitators, their screens glowing with sacred script. A red-robed figure leaned close, vox grills rasping with synthetic devotion. By the Omnissiah's grace, the relic breathes, the ancient spirit endures. Tony coughed. Yeah, well, someone tell the Omnissia thanks for the reboot. The tech priests froze. Words, machine spirit, relic, heretic, whispered through the chamber. But Stark, still weak, only saw an empire of fear. Knowledge bound in chains. He tried to rise, instinctively reaching for his armor. His chest plate, primitive by his old standards, sat nearby, embossed with sigils and purity seals. It wasn't his Iron Man suit. It was something else. A prototype forged in a world that worshipped technology instead of understanding it. And when he slipped it on, the armor whispered, not in English, not in code, but in a digital prayer. The machine spirit stirred. Power hummed through his veins, raw and reverent. He spent days learning, listening, adapting. The Adeptus Mechanicus called this place Ferrus Prime, a forgotten forge world buried beneath rust and dogma. Its forges still burned, but inefficiently, like a dying heart. They let him live because they thought him holy. The armor that revived him was of unknown design, self-repairing, self-aware. To them, Stark was not a man. He was a relic, perhaps even a messenger of the Omnissiah. He didn't correct them, not yet. Instead, he explored. He studied their plasma reactors, their servitors, their void shields. It was like walking through a museum of misused miracles. Every system could be improved, every inefficiency screamed to be solved. And deep down, he began to dream again. If I can't save my world, he whispered in the glow of molten forges, maybe I can save this one. His first act of rebellion was small, recalibrating a power coil. It boosted output by 18%. No one noticed. His second act, repairing an ancient STC fragment, caught attention. The data within described a modular armor frame, eerily similar to his Mark II. When the tech priests asked how he had restored it, he simply said, I listened to the machine. That phrase spread like wildfire. The Iron Prophet listens to the machine. Soon hundreds worked under his guidance. He taught them efficiency disguised as devotion, invention wrapped in ritual. He used their faith to fuel progress. But faith and progress make uneasy allies.
One night, as plasma storms raged over Ferris Prime, a Vox signal cut through the static, an inquisitorial cipher. The words chilled the room. Heresy blooms in the forge. A false prophet walks among the faithful. Tony looked up from his forge, the glow of molten iron reflecting in his eyes. "Well," he muttered, "that didn't take long." He stood, armored gauntlet snapping into place. The suit hissed with power, sleeker now, more alive, its spirit responsive to his touch. Not Iron Man as he once was, but something new. The Iron Man reborn in the Age of Iron. And as the Inquisition's dropship screamed through the sky, Tony Stark smiled beneath his helm. "Let's see how your faith handles physics. If you crave more tales from the dark millennium, strike that subscribe rune, because the Emperor protects those who stand for innovation in a galaxy that fears it."
The forge reforged. Ferris Prime burned with industry. Its horizon was a forest of spires and furnaces, each one coughing smoke into the blood-red sky. Beneath the cathedral arches of the forges, Tony Stark, known now to the Mechanicus as Magus Ferrum, bent the galaxy's rules of science one equation at a time. Weeks turned into months. The whispers of the Iron Prophet spread through the data streams of the Adeptus Mechanicus, through Manufactoria, through servitor networks. They said he communed directly with the Omnitia, that he could wake sleeping machine spirits with a single touch. In truth, Stark had done what no one in the Imperium had dared for 10,000 years. He innovated. He stripped the ritualistic codes from fabrication protocols, streamlined servitor logic chains, and replaced clunky reactor cores with his newly designed microfusion nodes. Each one could power a Titan for days without needing to appease a single saint or spirit. The forges sang with life again. But with every success, the red-robed priests watched him more closely. Their faces were hidden behind augmetic masks, their optical lenses tracking every movement. They couldn't decide whether to worship him or burn him. And Stark, ever the showman, gave them both reasons. He stood atop a gantry overlooking the primary foundry, plasma arcs crackling below. Before him knelt a dozen tech adepts, their robes singed by sparks, their data implants recording his every word. Gentlemen, and machine spirits, of course, today we make history. You've all seen power armor, heavy, sacred, built like a walking coffin. But what if the armor served the warrior instead of the other way around? He raised a gauntleted hand. At his command, a skeletal frame rose from the forge, a humanoid shape plated in ceramite and gold, lined with glowing conduits. It was elegant, streamlined, alive. "This," he said, voice ringing through the Vox, "is the Astartes interface frame. Adaptive targeting, reactive armor, fully autonomous machine spirit integration. You don't have to chant to it. You talk to it. You work with it." One priest dared to speak. "Magus Ferrum, the rites." "The rites are inefficient. You don't need superstition. You need understanding. The Emperor gave you minds. Start using them." His defiance shocked them, but the frame moved, responding to his neural link. The armor sealed around him in a hiss of light, the forge filled with the roar of power. For the first time in millennia, someone had made new armor that rivaled the Astartes' sacred suits.
And in that moment, Tony Stark realized he had crossed a line. That same night, deep within the forge catacombs, a shadow moved. Magos Dominos Hestalon, master of the forge, confronted him in silence. "You tread upon the machine god's domain, Ferrum. You risk damnation for what you build." Tony didn't look up from his workbench. "I'm not building gods, I'm building hope. The last man who said that was burned by the Inquisition. Then they can bring a bigger torch." Hestalon hesitated. "You are either mad or divine. Let's find out which, but I'm betting on mad." Weeks later, the first Iron Sentinels awoke. 12 warriors, gene-forged, armored in Stark's new design, each one faster, stronger, more adaptive than any traditional Astartes. The armor itself was alive with intelligence, harmonizing with the warriors' intent. They called him Lord Magus Commander now, a title half mockery, half reverence. And when he stood before his creation, Stark felt a rare thing in the grim darkness of the far future: pride. He had done what the Imperium thought impossible. He had improved the Emperor's design. But shadows gathered beyond the forge. From Mars, encrypted data streams bore warnings. The Fabricator General himself demanded explanation. And among the stars, the Inquisition's black ships drew closer, following the scent of innovation like carrion birds following blood. Stark's forge world pulsed with light, too much light. His creation stood ready for war, but he knew what the Imperium did to those who defied its ancient order. He gazed out at the burning horizon, the forge fires reflecting in his helmet. "Let them come," he whispered. "They'll bring their hate, their dogma, their chains, but I've got something they don't." He flexed his armored fist, sparks dancing across its surface. "I've got imagination." The forge sings louder. The shadows draw near. The next battle will test metal, faith, and the very idea of progress. The tension builds. Subscribe to witness more tales from the dark millennium. The Sons of the Machine God. The dawn on Ferris Prime was a sickly red, the kind of sunrise that came not from nature, but from 1,000 reactors bleeding heat into a polluted sky. On the surface of the Forge World, the Iron Sentinels stood in formation, 12 armored giants bathed in molten light. Their armor gleamed with ceramite and golden alloy, each plate etched with new circuitry that glowed faintly with artificial intelligence, a crime against the Mechanicus's most sacred tenets. But these warriors did not recite litanies or kneel before the machine. They spoke to it, and it answered. Tony watched them from the command dais, hands clasped behind his back. Their neural readings pulsed across his display like heartbeats, stable, synchronized, alive. "Beautiful, aren't they?" he murmured. Magos Hestalon stood beside him, his expression hidden behind a steel mask. "You've created weapons of unparalleled efficiency. The Omnissiah will either bless you or erase you." "Story of my life," Tony said. He activated the command vox. "Sentinels, report systems. Unit Iron 01, nominal. Unit Iron O2, adaptive servos responsive. Unit Iron O3, spirit synchronized. One by one, the voices rolled in through the vox, each a soldier born of faith and science. This was his masterpiece, the union of logic and faith, humanity and machine. And for a moment, Stark allowed himself to believe he had changed something in this grim future. Then came the first sign of resistance. A Vox transmission cut through the forge network, encrypted with high-order Mechanicus ciphers. It wasn't addressed to him, but about him. To all loyal forges of Mars and Terra, the heretic Ferrum has violated the sanctity of the machine god. The Inquisition moves to cleanse Ferris Prime. Exterminatus authorization pending. Hestalon froze. They mean to purge the world. Tony smirked grimly. Well, I always said innovation was explosive. He turned to the Iron Sentinels. Looks like we're going to need a field test. Hours later, the sky screamed. Imperial strike cruisers descended through the smog, their hulls glowing with re-entry heat, their bombardment cannons locked on target. Stark watched them from the fortress balcony. As the first bombardment shell shattered the horizon, the shockwave hit seconds later, scattering fire and molten slag across the manufactoria. He didn't flinch. Iron Sentinels, deploy! From the cathedrals of steel, his creations launched skyward on repulsor drives. Blue contrails slashed across the clouds, the first and last flight of the Iron Sentinels. They hit the ground where the Inquisition stormtroopers had landed. Plasma fire met bolt rounds in a thunderous exchange. The Sentinels fought like gods of iron, each strike perfectly calculated, each movement a blend of human instinct and machine precision. Unit Iron 05 reports enemy armor disabled. Unit Iron 07, heavy losses, requesting tactical redeployment. Understood, Tony replied, his neural uplink pulsing with data. Fall back to Refinery Cluster Delta. I'll cover you. He dropped from the balcony, armor sealing around him mid-descent. His new suit, sleeker than his Mark 85, heavier than a Space Marine's plate, ignited with a deep blue glow. Grav thrusters roared. He hit the battlefield like a comet. Bolt-arounds sparked off his chest plate. His HUD painted targets in crimson. He raised his hand, releasing a microplasma burst that vaporized a squad of stormtroopers. Nice aim, he muttered to himself. Guess the Omnissiah doesn't have copyright on miracles. But for every squad they broke, two more came. Servitors with flensing claws, sisters of battle chanting litanies of purification, and behind them the crimson silhouettes of Skiteri legions from Mars itself. Magos Ferrum, Hestalon's voice crackled through the vox. They bring Titans! Stark sensors confirmed it. Two walking cathedrals with bad attitudes. All right, he turned to his sentinels. Iron Legion, Formation Epsilon, we're not running. They didn't question him. They trusted him, and that trust, that spark of belief, meant more than the Mechanicus's millennia of fear. The Titans opened fire. Volcano cannons tore the horizon apart, waves of molten metal washing over the battlefield. One sentinel vanished in a flash of plasma. Another was crushed beneath a collapsing forge spire. But the survivors adapted. Armor reconfigured. Machine spirits learned. Within moments, their plasma projectors evolved into counter-frequency emitters, bending the Titan's targeting arrays off course. Stark flew low beneath the chaos, using the smoke for cover. His HUD locked onto a weak point at the Warhound's knee joint. He charged a repulsor burst, the brightest he'd ever fired. The explosion lit the sky. The Titan screamed, falling sideways into the manufactoria, its reactor detonating like a miniature sun. For a heartbeat, Ferrous Prime itself seemed to pause. Then came the voice on the global vox, cold, imperial, absolute. "This is Inquisitor Primus Valen of the Ordo Hereticus. Ferrous Prime is tainted. Commence orbital cleansing." Stark froze, the words echoing through his helm. "Exterminatus." He turned to the horizon, where the first glow of orbital torpedoes streaked downward like divine wrath. "All right," he said softly. "Guess we're past diplomacy." He switched to the local channel. "Sentinels, fall back to the orbital platform. We're leaving." "Lord Magos, do it!" And as the first Exterminatus warheads descended, Tony Stark ascended through fire. Still with us in the darkness? Comment your theories below. What corruption stalks our Iron Lord?
The Siege of Ferrous Prime. The heavens themselves were falling. Orbital bombardments cracked the atmosphere open, molten debris raining like a second apocalypse. Ferrous Prime, once a cathedral of steel, was becoming a tomb of molten slag and broken faith. The Inquisition's wrath had arrived, and the Imperium would see this world burned before it tolerated one spark of innovation. But Tony Stark wasn't ready to die again. His armor screamed warnings as he shot through the firestorm, trailing a wake of blue-white exhaust. Around him, drop pods burst apart mid-descent, their occupants erased before they touched ground. The sky was a killing field. Below, the Iron Sentinels rallied around the surviving forges, forming desperate perimeters amid rivers of molten iron. The Vox crackled with battle cries and dying signals. "Unit, Iron 03, armor breach, continuing engagement. Iron 06, Magos Ferrum, the orbital torpedoes are targeting the foundries." "Hold your positions," Tony barked. "We hold until the evacuation protocol's complete." But deep down, he knew there would be no evacuation. The Inquisition wasn't here to capture him. They were here to erase him and everything he'd built. He landed at the central command spire, its upper decks aflame. Magos Hestalon awaited him there, robes half-burned, his augmetic limbs sparking from shrapnel wounds. "You can't win this, Ferrum," he rasped. "Even now their fleets prepare to unleash cyclonic torpedoes. No world survives that." Tony removed his helm, sweat streaking his soot-covered face. "I know, but maybe they won't need to." Hestalon tilted his head. "Explain." "Backup plan," Stark said grimly. "Project Ascension." He keyed a rune on his forearm console, projecting a holographic schematic into the smoky air. An orbital relay surrounded by a web of defense satellites, half complete, hidden in the planet's upper atmosphere. Hestalon's eyes widened behind his lenses. "You were building a fortress?" "Not a fortress," Tony replied. "A lifeboat." The plan had been insane from the start, to create an automated, self-sustaining orbital forge capable of replicating itself, carrying humanity's potential into the void, beyond the Imperium's reach. He'd designed it to survive him.
Now it might be the only hope left. Sentinels, he voxed across all frequencies. This is Magos Ferrum. Priority override. Protect Ascension at all costs. Their responses came instantly, unwavering. Acknowledged, Lord Magos, for Ferrus Prime. He looked to Hestalon. You coming? The old Magos hesitated. No, my duty is here. I will hold the ground until the end. Someone must bear witness. Tony paused, then clasped his armored hand on Hestalon's shoulder. Then make sure they remember why we built. Hestalon's mechanical eyes dimmed in reverence. The machine god bless you, Ferrum, or whatever you truly are. The ground shook violently. A beam of incandescent fire struck the surface a few kilometers away, erasing an entire manufactorum. The blast wave flattened towers and sent molten metal raining down like a storm. Time's up, Tony muttered. Ascension, power up. His armor's thrusters roared, propelling him into the upper atmosphere. Below, the world dissolved in crimson fury. His HUD flickered as the orbital relay came into view, a vast ringed construct surrounded by drone platforms and defensive cannons. The Iron Sentinels who had escaped earlier now fought desperately to defend it, their armor glowing with heat, their voices chanting code prayers over the Vox. Then the Inquisition's flagship broke through the clouds, the Indomitable Faith, a battle barge bristling with weapons. Heretic Ferrum, by decree of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition, you are condemned. The penalty is death. Yeah, I've heard that one before, Stark muttered. He accelerated straight toward the ship. Its void shields flared as he slammed into them, releasing an EMP burst that cascaded through its systems. Sparks danced across his armor as he overloaded his own core, channeling power through his repulsors. The shields buckled, its lance batteries dimmed, the ship's massive form drifted in momentary paralysis, just long enough for the Iron Sentinels to unleash everything they had. Dozens of plasma bursts and microfusion warheads tore into the flagship's hull. The explosion turned the night into day, but the blast caught Stark in its wake, hurling him through the void. His armor system screamed in protest, half his senses going dark. He spun amid debris, vision fading. Below him, Ferrus Prime burned. Above, the Ascension station flickered, battered, but still intact. He forced his damaged thrusters to stabilize. "Come on, not yet," he whispered. Static filled the Vox. Magos Ferrum, this is Iron 2. The Ascension is operational, awaiting your command. Tony smiled weakly beneath his cracked helm. Then get the hell out of here. But that's an order, soldier. He watched as the orbital forge began to ascend higher, its engines flaring with blue light, a single tier of progress rising above a dying world. His world. He knew he couldn't follow. His reactor was failing, his oxygen reserves were nearly gone. But seeing that spark, that proof that humanity could still build, was enough. Not bad for a dead man. The Iron Lord falls, but the dream rises. The tension builds. Subscribe to witness more tales from the Dark Millennium. The Iron Ascension. The void was quiet now. Too quiet. Ferrus Prime hung below like a dying ember, its crust cracked open, oceans of molten metal glowing through the smoke of its funeral pyre. Around it drifted the broken remains of a world that had dared to dream. Fragments of forged cathedrals, shattered manufactoria, the corpses of men and machines locked forever in their last act of defiance. In the debris, a lone signal pulsed, weak, erratic, but alive. Tony Stark drifted in the ruins, his armor half melted, his life support failing. The once brilliant gold and blue plating was scorched black. Oxygen warnings blinked across his cracked visor. His breath came shallow, fogging the glass. He could still hear the machine spirits whispering somewhere deep within the damaged systems. The Astarte's interface frame, his masterpiece, was dying with him. "Hey, Jarvis," he murmured out of instinct. No response, of course, only the static hum of the void. "Figures," he coughed, the sound hollow in his helmet. "Guess I'll do this one old school." He looked toward the rising glow above the planet, the Ascension Station, gleaming faintly as its engines ignited. Around it, a swarm of drone forges deployed solar sails, carrying data cores, designs, blueprints, everything he'd built. Humanity's potential, packed into machines that could seed the stars. That was the dream, not to conquer, not to rule, to build, even if the galaxy hated him for it. "Magos Ferrum," came a faint, distorted voice over the Vox. It was Iron 02, the last surviving sentinel. "The station is stable. Orders, my lord?" Tony smiled faintly. "You're in command now, Sentinel. Take the fleet out of the system. Keep building, keep learning, and, for the love of everything, don't start worshipping yourselves." "Affirmative," the warrior replied. "May the Omnicia guide your spirit." "Yeah, let's hope he's more forgiving than the Church." He watched the Ascension vanish into the void, a spark swallowed by infinite night. His vitals dropped another notch. The armor's reactor was flickering out. He could feel the heat bleeding away, the cold creeping in. He thought of Earth, not the holy terra of this age, but his Earth, the one with blue skies, laughter, and his father's old workshop, the one he'd left behind. He wondered what his father would think seeing him here, a man who once built weapons to end wars, now building hope in a galaxy that didn't believe in it. He gave a soft, rasping laugh. "Guess I finally made something that lasts, old man." From the void, a flicker of light approached, a small escape pod tumbling through the debris field. Inside it, Magos Hestalon, burnt and broken, clung to life. He hailed on the emergency channel. "Ferrum, you still live?" "Define live," Tony croaked. "The Inquisition is gone, but their message endures. They will come again. Others will come." "Then let them. They'll find ruins, not revolution." "And the Ascension?" Tony looked to the stars where his creation had vanished. "Gone, but maybe one day something will come back down. Smarter, kinder, less afraid." His Hestalon's vox crackled. "You sound like the Emperor." Stark chuckled softly. "Please, he's got better hair." Then silence. His armor's light dimmed one by one. The last flicker of power went to his external sensors, and through them Tony saw Farouz Prime die, The exterminatus torpedoes detonated their final payload. The world collapsed inward, vanishing in a blossom of white light. The blast consumed everything. When the light faded, there was nothing left but dust and data, the faint echo of an idea moving through the stars. Somewhere deep in the void between systems, the ascension continued on its course. Its machine spirits carried Stark's legacy, algorithms of invention, archives of knowledge, blueprints for a future the Imperium had forgotten how to dream of. It would take centuries, maybe millennia, but eventually someone, human, Xenos, or something new, would find it. And when they did, they would learn the truth Tony Stark wrote into its heart. Progress is not heresy, it is hope. His armor drifted silently through the void, a cold relic of defiance. The Iron Lord had fallen, but his idea would outlive empires. Farus Prime is gone. The Inquisition claims victory. The Adeptus Mechanicus calls it purification, and the Ecclesiastico writes it off as divine will. Yet in the hidden data vaults of the galaxy, whispers remain, of a forge that burned brighter than the stars, of warriors born both from faith and science, and of a man of iron who dared to think freely. The Imperium will never speak his name. They will call him heretic, abomination, false prophet. But in the deepest circuits of the Ascension, his voice endures, encoded in every line of code, a reminder that the machine god's greatest gift was not obedience, but curiosity. And so the legend of the Iron Lord endures, the one who tried to save humanity from itself. Somewhere beyond the light of dying stars, the dream continues. The Emperor protects. More stories await.